this group of rhinos.
I agree. I'm going to show you just two more pictures before we end. First of all, here, if we go to graphic 9, this is a photo of the actual embryo. And just in case Charlie Kirk is watching, that is a rhino. That's not a human embryo, to reference the Ben Glebe dolphin fetus thing. But anyway, and also a reminder that while getting down to just 2 rhinos is crazy, we're losing a lot of species and a lot of species are at risk. You can see here the rapid rise in the number of endangered species, even at a time where there's a lot of conservation efforts going on and conversations about conservation. There are a lot of species at risk. And do we want to live in a world where we just have this like burned husk of a planet with fewer and fewer species there that used to showcase this amazing diversity? We can work on it. We can save them. It doesn't mean shutting down our economy or anything like that. So thank you to the researchers who are working on that. Hopefully people will care enough to support them. And that is unfortunately all the time we have in the show. As always, it has been a pleasure to have you on to talk politics with you. Thank you, David, for joining us.
John, look, the pleasure's mine. Coming on your show is a highlight for me every time. I don't get to do it as often as I would like, but it's just because of scheduling all that. But it's always an hour and a half well spent, and I always walk away learning from things and appreciating that.
Too.
When I think about how brilliant the people are at TYT compared to a lot of other places, you are at the top of the list.
That is very nice. I was actually unprepared for that, but you're great too. You know that. And thank you for joining us. Obviously, you're busy. You're producing content on a daily basis, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you for joining us.
You got it.
And with that said, all of you watching, we still have a little bit more. Not on the show right now. You got to go watch Indisputable. But then in a half an hour, we're going to be going live on YouTube with our Tier 3 members for our members monthly hangout. I know many of you are going to be there. If you are a Tier 3 member and you haven't hung out, consider for a little bit. It's a lot of fun. We chit chat. We have fun. For now, though, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
Welcome. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richard. Good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day, none other, Yasmin Aliya Khan, host of Modern Context, Rebel HQ contributor, all-star. Always fascinating to have her analysis. Top story of the day, District Attorney Fani Willis, well, the court records have been unsealed, and guess what? No mention of her in these divorce records, no mention of her at all. Hundreds of pages, not one mention of the DA. Put up the picture full mask. Let me remind you why everyone paid attention to the distraction rather than Mr. Roman, who's actually on trial for trying to overthrow democracy. His defense attorney filed a motion. On the last day, he was allowed to file a motion before the trial. It's called a pretrial motion. He files the pretrial motion, indicates by way of rumor and conjecture that the district attorney is involved in an inappropriate relationship. And because of this, his client should have all charges dropped, which is insane. Because even if there's a violation of an office policy between two consenting adults, it is not a statutory violation against the rights of the defendant, nor is it a constitutional violation against the rights of the defendant. But still, the motion wanted the divorce proceeding, the documents, to be unsealed, insinuating that in those documents, we would somehow find evidence of this rumor. Fulton County, Georgia, the recently unsealed records pertaining to the divorce of Fulton County Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade do not provide evidence of an improper clandestine relationship with his superior, Fulton County DA Fani Willis. Wade was appointed by Willis to lead the investigation into Georgia election interference case. He's basically the manager, all right? He's the guy to make sure all of the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. It did result in the indictment of former President Donald Trump and 18 others. Let's make the main thing again. Put him up. Him. That's the main thing. Co-defendant Michael Roman, a former White House aide, filed a motion alleging a romantic involvement between Willis and Wade, along with saying, and they benefited from this relationship and from the prosecution. Roman also requested the unsealing of Nathan and Jocelyn Wade's divorce records, all right? There's more. Cobb County, this is where it happened. Cobb County is next to Fulton County. Cobb County Superior Court Judge Henry Thompson ordered the unsealing of these records on Monday. However, the extensive documents spanning hundreds of pages make no mention of Willis or any other potential romantic interest. Nathan and Jocelyn Wade were married on June 21st, 1997. They separated August 15th, 2021. The timeline is important. With Nathan Wade filing for divorce November 2nd, 2021. Now, before I go and give you the rest of the details here, you do know the headlines will not be as sensational, will not be as robust as the initial headline, which was based on rumor. Now we have a fact. The fact provides a contrast to the insinuation of the motion. The motion filed by the Trump co-defendant said you will find evidence of a romantic relationship in this filing. Unseal it. A judge decides to unseal it. There is no evidence that a relationship was taking place at that time. None. Here's the other thing. Fani Willis, the DA, through a spokesperson, said very clearly, we will answer these questions in court. Well, what happened? After that, a motion was filed as a rebuttal from the DA's office, basically saying, I have no unique knowledge of any information that would be germane to a divorce proceeding with Mr. Wade. Who told the truth? She did. Who insinuated a lie? Mr. Roman. These are the facts so far. There's more. So in her counterclaim, and this is the counterclaim of Jocelyn Wade, a counterclaim is normative in divorce proceedings. In her counterclaim, submitted November 30th. Now watch the timeline. This is 28 days after Mr. Wade filed for divorce. 28 days later, she files a counterclaim. She submitted a comprehensive list of interrogatories. Interrogatories, and let me explain this. Interrogatories are basic but probative questions that you are to answer, all right? So you can say, describe your romantic entanglements. Was there excessive alcohol use in the relationship? These interrogatories are presented in the counterclaim, all right? These questions cover financial matters related to Nathan Wade, along with personal aspects, including sexual partners, casual meetings with other women than his wife during their marriage and separation, social media, dating, website activities, and inquiries about both drug and alcohol usage. Nathan Wade responded to the interrogatories in the counterclaim on December 2021, all right? But according to Jocelyn's attorney, the response was deemed woefully inadequate as it included only a few incorporation documents, one bank statement, and minimal answers to personal interrogatories. She wasn't satisfied with the answers, but here's one answer we have, had nothing to do with DA Fani Willis. Can we all agree that the answers, the questions, the back and forth, the claim, the counterclaim, and then the counter to the counterclaim had absolutely nothing to do with DA Fani Willis? There's more. Over the subsequent 2 years, Jocelyn Wade's attorney repeatedly complained about Nathan Wade's willful refusal, it is called, to provide the requested documents or answer interrogatories. In May 2023, the court ordered Nathan Wade to submit all outstanding documents, including tax records and pay stubs, which he partially complied with in June 2023. Subsequently, he faced contempt charges August 2023 and was directed to provide additional credit card statements and law firm records. So let's go to September. Now, if he doesn't provide, let me say this, if he doesn't provide the information required by the court, you are then technically in contempt. It's up to the judge to enforce the contempt action or not. Looks like this judge enforced the contempt action. That is separate. That is separate from any issue with DA Fani Willis. I can't see the district attorney being involved in his interrogatories or whatever legal strategy he and his attorney may have as it relates to the counterclaim. Has nothing to do with DA Fani Willis. Once again, September 2023, Jocelyn Wade filed another motion. It is a motion to reopen discovery. Look at the timeline. Now we are squarely into the territory of Trump prosecution, okay? September 2023, Jocelyn Wade filed a motion to reopen discovery. Reopen discovery alleging that Nathan Wade, while appointed as a special prosecutor in the Trump case, was leading a lavish lifestyle, spending substantial amounts of money, leaving her with minimal financial support. If he did that, he should not have. If he did it and got caught, he should pay. He should pay anyway, period. Whatever the just due is, you submit your documentation as provided. You be transparent so that things like this do not come up to bite you in the ass. Once again, still No Fani Willis, district attorney prosecuting Trump, mentioned. There's more. December 2023. Nathan Wade reportedly produced some outstanding discovery responses. Discovery, by the way, is something that each attorney must abide by, okay? Revealing credit card statements indicating non-work related trips with Willis. Can I say this again? In December 2023, Nathan Wade produced outstanding discovery responses revealing credit card statements indicating non-work related trips with Willis. This is 2 years after legal separation. 2 years after legal separation, he provided the documentation to comply with the motion. There's more. Credit card statements indicating non-work related trips with Willis. As a result, Jocelyn Wade decided to now serve DA Willis. Everyone knows she's in the middle of this prosecution, and obviously based on the court records previous, there was no issue with Fani Willis, except for after their marriage had ended. So Jocelyn Wade served Willis with a notice of deposition, meaning putting the DA under oath on January 8th. Wade has not, admitted to a romantic relationship with Wade and defended him in a speech, the DA has not, and defended him in a speech with the historic Bethel AME Church. She was there on January 14th. We covered that at Indisputable. She sought, talking about the DA, she sought a protective order against the deposition, basically saying this is now harassing litigation because I have no unique knowledge of anything that would have made their marriage fall apart. I did not even have a connection to this guy in this way until after their marriage was done. I have no unique knowledge here, Judge. That is a credible defense to a motion that's this probative, all right? Okay, so a judge actually granted that motion, agreed and said, yeah, it looks like you probably don't have unique information, at least temporarily, all right? So that motion was granted. The impact of the alleged relationship between Willis and Wade on the case against former Trump and his cronies, where 4 have accepted plea deals, that remains uncertain. Calls for investigations into the matter have been made, including Fulton County Commissioner Bob Ellis, Republican, by the way. The Republican on the commission, Bob Ellis, who sent a letter to Willis last week, and Senator Greg Dolezal, who introduced legislation to establish the Senate Special Committee on Investigations to look into the allegations of misconduct. An evidentiary hearing in the divorce case is scheduled for January 31st in Cobb County Superior Court. And Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee has set a hearing to consider Roman's motion to dismiss his case next month on February 15th. I got your timeline. I have the actual motion and the response to the motion, which is unsealing of the divorce records. We now see that DA Fani Willis in her motion, when she said, I have no unique knowledge of their divorce, she was telling the truth. The insinuation that she somehow was involved in a nefarious way that ripped up this happy marriage, allegedly, was completely false. The narrative and the rumors were utilized to do exactly what has now happened. Because instead of the main thing being the main thing, we're talking about a divorce, an entangled relationship perhaps, and somebody spending money on a credit card in 2023, 2 years after there's no more marriage connection. This is about one thing: eliminating the opportunity to get to former President Donald Trump. Because the one thing he does not want is a black woman prosecuting him. He already knows. A black woman prosecuting him, she is not subjected to his threats. She is not afraid of his political might. She did not back down from the initial special purpose grand jury investigation, nor the normative grand jury indictment. She has been doing this for a few years now and has not stopped under any pressure. So what do they do now? They created a narrative. Now, is Mr. Wade potentially out of line here with some of the dynamics not produced by way of order to the court? Of course. Could have avoided this by producing the information earlier, but you probably still don't avoid someone manipulating the information to make it seem like it is something else. He's the one who provided the receipts in the first place, okay? He's a single man now, you can do that. Is there possibly a county issue? Perhaps. That's an inter-office dynamic. It's nothing legally chargeable, as the Georgia Bureau of Investigations has already concluded. All right, hell of a thing. Okay, here we go. My dear sister, I had to put it all on the record so everybody can see it full blast. Yeah. What say you?
You know, from the beginning, we all knew exactly what this was. This was not just a long shot attempt for Trump and his team to evade accountability for the crimes that they've been accused of committing. It was always an attempt to call the legitimacy of the whole case and the whole trial and the whole DA's office into question. Trump has learned that it doesn't matter whether or not he gets accused of committing crimes. All that matters is whether or not he has public support behind him. He already knows that half of his supporters don't actually care whether or not he's a criminal, but they also know that the other half can be pretty easily convinced that Trump is not only innocent, but he's a victim. These evil Democrats are just trying to get to him, but he's out there doing the work, fighting the fight, so that his supporters don't have to. He's their martyr and they love him for it. All he's doing with any of this is wasting time, and he's wasting resources, and he is securing votes.
Yep, that's right. DA Fani Willis, I highly encourage you to file a bar complaint against this attorney for making this filing in bad faith. This is something that is fileable based on what we now know factually. All right? Bring you updates as they come. What if I told you a Georgia elected official asked the sheriff, hey, I need you to investigate this. And then that elected official ends up being arrested for multiple felonies herself. Well, that's exactly what happened. Put up the picture full mass. Hell of a story here. This is in North Georgia. Commerce City Councilwoman Roshonda Merritt has seen her new career as a recently elected official get off to a rocky start after an attempt to go to the local sheriff's office for help led to her being arrested for felony charges. Charges of the high crime of marijuana distribution. This comes almost a month after she was sworn into office. So Jackson County Sheriff Janice Mangum said the charges came after the 43-year-old lawmaker asked the Jackson County Sheriff's Office to intervene against someone who had allegedly posted inappropriate photographs of her on social media. The sheriff telling the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, quote, she reached out for help and filed a report about inappropriate photos. She was the victim. So let me give you the law. Georgia law criminalizes the distribution of sexually explicit images without the consent of the person depicted. Sharing revenge porn is considered a felony when a person posts a sexually explicit image on a website. In such cases, the offender may face a prison sentence of 1 to 5 years and or a fine for up to $100,000. If the act involves posting the explicit content on any other electronic platform, it is treated as an aggravated misdemeanor, carrying a potential prison sentence up to 12 months and a $5,000 fine. After starting the investigation, the JCSO discovered evidence. Now that's kind of vague, but this is how they characterize it. Discovered evidence pointing to a different crime where the public school teacher turned politician was placed under the microscope, so to speak. Merritt allegedly sent a photo of 4 THC-infused gummies. Oh my gosh. We must suspend this investigation immediately and charge the elected official with massive distribution of controlled substances. There's more. All right, so they found a picture, said, okay, she sent a picture with a text that said, let her know if anyone wanted to purchase said gummies, according to an arrest warrant and the AJC report. So at that point, the sheriff says, I stopped my investigation. Wait a minute. What do you mean you stopped your investigation? She said, at that point, I stopped my investigation and requested the GBI. The sheriff continued, quote, I felt like it would be best for them to become involved because of her position on the Commerce City Council and because she was a Jackson County School employee. The JCSO handed over discovery pictures and text messages of her phone of THC gummies that they allege point to the councilwoman selling the cannabinoid narcotics. I never heard it referred that way. They call it cannabinoid narcotics in the police report. You know they're reaching, right? Cannabinoid narcotics. Okay, that's cute. Out of her Jackson County home. The GBI, they came down full force, arrested the elected official on January 19th. After reviewing evidence, they charged her with a criminal attempt to commit the sale of marijuana and use of a telecommunication facility to facilitate a felony. Merritt, who represents Ward 5, turned herself in and was booked into the Jackson County Jail. I'll put up the attorney. The attorney has a great question here. So the attorney, so Merritt is represented by attorney Jason Black, who questions how did law enforcement go from working on behalf of investigating her, Black told the AJC, quote, how was a case able to be made against my client before they were able to solve a revenge porn situation where my client is the victim and people wonder why nobody goes to the police for help, end quote. The lawyer did not deny the gummies were his clients, but said Merritt had sent the text messages before she was ever an employee as a teacher or elected to the city council. They charged her with conspiracy, except nobody knows what those pictures were. Are they THC or CBD or gummies out of a Captain Crunch box at the store? If it were me, sir, it came from the Captain Crunch box. Quote, what they did was they made a whole lot of assumptions and claimed she was attempting to distribute THC and added the use of a telephone for basically asking, do you want one of these? Black added. Still, his client is facing swift backlash and distancing from those who believe the charges are enough for them to step away. Jackson County School Systems released a statement saying, quote, it is aware of the ongoing investigation regarding a former employee of the system. We are cooperating with law enforcement agencies. While the district referred to her as a former employee, as of Tuesday, January 23rd, she was listed in the East Jackson High School staff directory as a career technical and agricultural teacher. So let's put up the assistant city manager. His name is Matthew Haley, City of Commerce. So he released a statement regarding the arrest and the municipality's position on Merritt's status in the city council. Quote, because this matter involves an open and ongoing investigation, the City of Commerce has no comment at this time. So Commerce, the city clerk, Sandra Haggard, was not as vague, telling the AJC, quote, this is a personal matter done on personal time. It occurred prior to her election. It has nothing to do with the city whatsoever. Our city charter says there is nothing for us to do unless there is a felony conviction in the court of law, and everybody is innocent until proven guilty. That's what I'm talking about. She probably broke all kind of rules by making a statement outside of the normative process of the city manager. But good for you. You told the truth. Everything you said was factual. Once again, Black female leadership just got there, probably raised some eyebrows. Maybe she said something that was not part of the normative chain of command, how you should structure a statement, or she offended somebody. all of a sudden she's a prolific cannabinoid narcotics dealer. Wow. All right, this is the thoughts here.
Yeah, for as long as weed is still illegal in parts of the country and at the federal level, they're going to just continue using it as a reason to lock people up or just to discredit good people. They're really going to miss all the conveniences of this war on drugs, which has only ever been a tool of government control from its very conception decades ago up until this very day, it seems. There's absolutely a difference and a distinction that needs to be made between that which is lawful and that which is just or good. There are plenty of laws on the books today, and there have been plenty of laws throughout this country's history that are fundamentally and demonstrably unjust, whether that's on a moral level or just in terms of equity and the way that they're enforced. And here we have a woman who was victimized in a very real and scary way, but somehow having gummies or Captain Crunch cereal is somehow considered to be more offensive and more dangerous and a higher priority than the revenge porn that she was originally seeking help with. And that revenge porn, again, just a reminder, is considered a felony. So if the point of law enforcement is just to serve and protect, then they're just not doing it. And they wonder why people have so much public distrust of law enforcement. And it's just like you said with the previous story, this is another instance of, the main thing is being made to no longer be the main thing. And coincidentally, Black women in positions of authority have been the victims in both of the stories that we've discussed so far.
Yep, that's right. Once again, both are felonies, right? Statutory. The sheriff said, I stopped my investigation in order to call the GBI on this elected official. It's insane. Okay. A judge, federal judge, Trump appointee, decides to block the EPA from doing exactly what they're supposed to do, protecting people and the environment. Let's put it up full mass. Federal Judge James D. Cain, Trump appointee, blocked the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Justice from enforcing Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, disparate impact requirements against Louisiana agencies. The judge ruled against residents of a stretch of parishes along the Mississippi River known as Cancer Alley, okay? An epicenter of petrochemical manufacturing in the US, and the people living there disproportionately have higher rates of cancer. Facts, okay? Last year, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, a Republican, then the state attorney general, sued the EPA to block a civil rights investigation into potential disparate impacts in the largely Black area of the state, arguing the probe exceeded statutory authority. The agency closed 3 civil rights complaints weeks later, but in his Tuesday ruling, Cain said existing regulations also constitute federal overreach. In the preliminary injunction, he wrote that the EPA and DOJ are barred from, quote, imposing or enforcing any disparate impact based requirements against the state of Louisiana or any state agency under Title VI. Well, damn, that means the federal government has no authority. That's what that would mean, which is insane. The federal government has zero authority? None? There's more. Cain wrote, quote, pollution does not discriminate, end quote. It's the people that, I don't think you understand how this works, sir. And that if a decision maker has to consider race to decide on enforcement, it has indeed participated in racism. Cain's ruling comes the same day as a report from the National Minority Equality Forum, which found that 56% of the communities of color are cited with 3 kilometers of a site producing carcinogenic waste. The town of Reserve in St. John, the Baptist parish, has cancer risk about 50 times the national average. Let's put them up, Earth Justice. They filed the original Title VI complaint on behalf of St. John, the Baptist parish residents in 2022. You're looking at Sam Sankar. So Sam is the senior vice president of programs, blasted the ruling in a statement saying, and I quote, the court's decision to issue this injunction is bad enough. But what's worse is that instead of fixing the discriminatory permitting programs that have created sacrifice zones like Cancer Alley, Louisiana is fighting tooth and nail to keep them in place. The public health crisis in St. John the Baptist Parish shows us why we need Title VI. See, EPA needs to be able to use our civil rights laws to stop states from running permitting programs that perpetuate environmental injustice. There you go, all right? Now, there has to be a response from the current administration on this that is vigorous, that actually shows they're willing to be passionate and fight tooth and nail, just like Louisiana. But I doubt you will see that, all right? Thoughts?
Yeah, so I live in Houston, which is also along the Gulf Coast. We're not that far from Louisiana and the Mississippi Delta. Oil and gas is huge around here. The people who live in these areas regularly drive by oil plants and refineries, and a lot of us earn our living working in the oil and gas industry. It's just a way of life around here. So you would think that they're extra vigilant around here about oil spills and leaks and toxic, hazardous byproducts in general, but they are not. It's always just a matter of time until there's another plant explosion or another black plume of carcinogens traveling across the city. We've seen that so many times. And at least in Houston, I can say that very little gets done about it in terms of preventing these incidents from happening in the future, let alone any kind of reparations or assistance for the people who are the most directly affected. And in Houston, the people who live along the Houston Ship Channel, which is where most of the refineries are, they tend to be Black and brown people, and their life expectancies are decades less than those people who live in the more affluent and the more white communities just 30 minutes to the west. So protecting those communities is not a priority, and we know that it's not, because if it was, they would do things about it. They know about the dangers of these refineries. They know about all these carcinogens that are being pumped into the land and into the air and into the water supply, and they're not doing anything about it because profits are always more important than people.
Especially when the people are people of color.
Yeah.
All right. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the Bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. When educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power, it makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America.
Listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either. All right, welcome back. We got a lot of show left. Running a little behind on time, so let me read a few of these comments. All right, Electric Miscellanea. Hi all, happy to catch a good Dr. Live today, but hopefully my boss doesn't find out I'm multitasking today. Your boss may be a fan. I doubt it, but you know. All right, and Rise. Once again, the repugs can't stay out of our pants and bedrooms. Yeah. All right, that's something for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life. Shut it down right now! Mark Zuckerberg is not f***ing done! Give me some food! I own all this shit! I own all this food! Give me some food! Don't make me call racist terms on you! Give me some damn real food! Give me some food!
He's coming out! He's cooking your quarter!
Idiot, give me some fries! Give me that bag of fries right there! I'm gonna grab your hand, grab me that bag of fries right there!
What fries do you need?
That bag right there!
Okay.
Both bags! Both bags is coming for 3 months! Don't ever stupid shit. White again, yo! Yo, I ain't taking all this country, white or black! Yo!
Well, somebody's having not a good day. All right. So I don't know if this individual, obviously, maybe having a break at the moment, but I want to highlight something. Whatever's happening in his mind, the workers seem to be really, really courteous, because even after he destroyed property and yelling and saying, "Give me real food," which, by the way, you're probably not getting real food in a drive-through window, not on average. Okay, something to put in your belly, but not real food. They continue to say, "Hey, it's coming. Just give me a minute. We're on the way." All right. I thought that was quite courteous. Thank you for being nice to somebody having a bad day. All right, thoughts?
I muted myself. Yeah, whenever I see things like this, my initial response is always to laugh. But I think that's because I always just kind of watch the world like I'm watching a movie. But it's not a movie. People are really out here in these streets acting like this. And in real life, things can go from being funny to being scary very quickly. And I will never understand why people think it's okay to act this way, whether that's in public or in private, but especially in public. But this is where we are as a society. As he said, props to those workers for the way that they handle this very, very scary situation.
There you go. All right. Hell of a thing. Governor Youngkin, he has this CRT hotline, critical race theory. Call us. Okay. So a black digital disruptor trolled it. Here it is.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin created a tip line to report critical race theory being taught in schools. I had a problem with that. So I wanted there to be an easy, fun, community-oriented way to get this tip line taken down as soon as possible. I coded a tool that allowed people to send song lyrics and lines from the B movie to the tip line. Essentially, it takes the name of a real school, a real city in Virginia, and spits out a very ridiculous report. For example, I have reason to believe Thomas Jefferson High School is teaching race. I overheard a teacher saying, "Shoddy had them apple-bottom jeans." It's silly, it's goofy, it's just as unserious as the creation of a teacher reporting tip line itself, which is exactly what draws people to this kind of action. Democracy is just more fun and inviting when you take it into your own hands. After I finished the website, I sent it to my friends at Gen Z for Change. We all posted videos. Thousands of emails were sent from every state in the country and virtually every continent. And we had emails bouncing within 48 hours. Months later, the tip line was quietly officially shut down. Didn't even last a year. Because of the skills of a few, the platforms of many, and the will of hundreds of thousands of meddling kids, unified in our intolerance of injustice, we were far more powerful than a couple people in official positions of power. The stability of democracy internationally requires that we use whatever skills and resources we have to combat hate, bring movements to life, and stand united in solidarity with one another on every corner of the globe. Justice can't wait. So take what's in front of you, get really creative, and cause a ruckus.
Call me Morpheus, for I have found the one. Put her up full mass. One of the most powerful statements she made is that you are stronger, you're more powerful than a couple of elected officials or officials in authority. You're looking at Sophia Wangeli, who serves as the director of digital strategy at Gen Z for Change. This is a youth-led nonprofit. It leverages the power of social media to drive what you just saw, progressive change. Sophia is a 22-year-old developer, creator, activist from the greater Los Angeles area, and now attends Columbia University. At 17, she created her first award-winning app, Redawn, to support survivors of sexual violence, thereby sparking her passion for using technology to serve marginalized communities. As the digital strategist, she creates tools to streamline digital civic engagement, tackling issues from the climate crisis to inclusive education. Most recently, she was a subject on the Disney Plus docuseries Growing Up. wherein she details our imperative ability to break free of internalized stereotypes and imposter syndrome. She has spent her academic career teaching more than 100 of her peers how to code, speaking to students in virtual and in-person classrooms about the importance of using their skills to create change, and sharing her ideas with larger audiences at conferences such as Aspen Ideas Festival and SXSW. Her work has been lauded in publications such as Teen Vogue, CNN, and even Bloomberg, embedded in computer science curriculum, taught in classrooms nationwide, and has earned her accolades, such as the California Endowment Voices for Change Award and being named a CES Young Innovator to Watch. I applaud not only the amazing mental cognitive gifting of this brilliant leader, but the willingness to leverage it to create positive change in the world. Thank you. All right, thoughts?
Yeah, and this is how you do change. This is how you respond to, I can't say the word that I want to say. This is how you respond to government overreach and political incompetence and just irrational fear coming from our political leaders. You have to be smarter than the people perpetuating these fears. And this young woman has proven that it's not very difficult to outsmart them. And what I love about what happened here is how geographical sprawl wasn't an obstacle here. There have been so many things that have galvanized groups of people in opposition against government officials or laws or initiatives over the year, but they tend to fizzle out over time. And I think part of the reason for that is because it can be difficult to physically assemble large and long-lasting demonstrations of people when we're all so spread out in the suburbs and in rural areas across this giant country. But technology is the new gathering space. It's the new town square. We're all the town criers on the internet. And I love that this young woman was able to, I love what she was able to achieve using the internet. And for Gen Z, they're the digital natives. You know, they're the ones who grew up with an iPad or an iPhone in their hand. I'm really glad to see that all of that is worth something.
Yeah, amazing. And she's doing the work and making effective change, and she avails herself to service. All of her accolades are well-deserved. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You know, you just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT, TYT.
The place is like 95% TYT on.
Favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Cenk and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
The people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
All right, welcome back. We got a lot of show left. Let me read a couple of comments. Trudy Lawrence, thank you for being a member for 18 months. Dr. Richard, please have her on the show. Please and always thank you for being you. Absolutely. Already in the universe. Production is on it. All right. So continue to pray it happens. Rise, thank you for that. Iron sharpens iron. That's right. Say that often. You sound like one of my students. All right. Are you one of my students? Okay. Hell of a thing. All right. Video of the police kneeling on a student's neck has been released. We have some of the information for you. Put it up full mass here. Right? That's a student underneath the knee of that cop. Per the AP, Clark County School District officials in Las Vegas have released police reports and body cam footage under court order showing a campus officer kneeling on a black student last year. The incident sparked public outrage after initial bystander video circulated on social media. The viral 55-second cell phone video began with several officers detaining two students as another student walked by. Recording them, Ellsberg yelled to him, "You want next, dude?" The student backed away. The student lowered his phone before the cop twisted him to the ground next to the patrol vehicle, as you see here. The student faced down next to the curb. The officer kneeled on his back. At one point, the student could be heard asking his friends to call his mother. In his incident report, the Clark County School District Police Lieutenant Jason Elfberg said the teen, whose name is redacted, refused to move away from the officers, handcuffing another student while investigating a report that a gun had been brandished the previous day a threat had been made to shoot up a Las Vegas school. No weapon was found, by the way. I want you to take the side-by-side comparison here, okay? You see, we have deemed the knee on the back of a person to be a no-no. It led to the death of a human being on camera and honestly, injury and death to a lot of human beings across the span of policing in America. Elfberg, who is white, pinning the teen beneath his knee drew public protest and comparisons to the 2020 murder of Mr. George Floyd. The community has called for the cops firing and an ACLU of Nevada lawsuit that forced school officials to release all information. It was them that helped spark the actual transparency. Separately, police body camera video showing the teen being handcuffed by another officer sitting on the curb with his hand behind his back. And Elfberg later acknowledging that the two landed hard on the sidewalk. He encouraged the teen to be checked for injuries, but the teen declined. In his report, the cop wrote that the incident escalated when he ordered the student to start walking, at which point he said no, end quote. Elfberg said in his report, he grabbed the teen, pushed him against the fence, and he attempted again to remove himself from my grasp. So I then spun him around and took him down to the ground. All right, so you're admitting, okay, let's put it up full mass. So this is the attorney of Lieutenant Elfberg, Adam Levine. Adam told the AP ahead of the release that his client, a 14-year-old police veteran, he's acting like a 14-year-old, but he's a 14-year police veteran, was cleared of wrongdoing by the district and remains on the school police force. The attorney also represents the school district's police union. Now, here's what you do. School police officer, school board representatives, political, meaning accountable to the people, right? Political position, elected. Somebody's in charge, district and community-wide. Get to working. School officials, late Thursday, complied with a judge's order to release the police body camera footage of the February 9th, 2023 incident near the Durango High School campus. The 6 video clips the district distributed with faces and parts of some other scenes blurred total more than 2 hours. The district argued that most records of the encounter were confidential because of the age of the people who were detained and denied media requests for them. The ACLU on Friday called the district's fight not to release the records shameful and expensive for the organization and taxpayers. It characterized officers' accounts that the teenagers were stopped during a gun investigation and attempt to spin the events and avoid accountability for attacking school children, end quote. Let's put up Executive Director, ACLU Executive Director, Athar Hezbollah told reporters Friday, quote, this fight is far from over, and that the organization has spent $50,000 on the attorneys to obtain the records on behalf of the 2 male students whose names have not and will not be made public, as they were 14 years of age at the time. During the news conference, the executive director, ACLU attorney Christopher Peterson, and NAACP Las Vegas president Quentin Savoir said it appeared Lieutenant Elfberg was annoyed that police activity was being recorded. So the ACLU, through the executive director, called for Clark County DA Steve Wolfson to investigate and charge officers with wrongdoing. So the DA responded that police should conduct the investigations and collect evidence, not his office, even though his office has investigators and has the authority to investigate. While he has prosecuted officers throughout the county for various crimes, he said no filing seeking prosecution has come across his desk. He said further, I'm not afraid to file a charge in an inappropriate circumstance if and when there is sufficient evidence. Sir, so you mean to tell me that in order for a cop to get away with a crime against a child, all they need to do is simply not investigate and send you the information. That's it. It can be on camera. It could be noted by eyewitnesses. It could be in a sworn affidavit from a victim. But if the cops don't do the investigation themselves, your office won't lift a finger to do what the community who voted for you empowered you to do. You have concurrent jurisdiction here, sir. You were elected because the people believed in circumstances like this, your leadership would actually prevail. All right, thoughts here.
Yeah, how is this still happening? It's incomprehensible. And I say that not just because we literally saw global protests over George Floyd, but how do these cops think that this is any way to treat anyone, let alone a child? How did we get to this point to where we're thinking that this is an okay way to carry out justice? The fact of the matter is that we simply don't see cops in other so-called civilized countries treating their citizens this way. Cops are just people who wanted to do a job, so they got a job. They're not better than most people. And we can talk about the caliber of people who are allowed to become cops in this country. We can talk about the types of people who even want to be a cop in America today and why that job is appealing to them. But this problem is so much bigger than even any of that. The problem is the fact that Derek Chauvin is still celebrated in this country. The problem is that the cops are still so protected that they're insulated from legal liability, even though they're literally just people who are given deadly force and the freedom to exert it as they see fit with little to no fear of meaningful repercussions. And this goes even beyond poverty and the systemic factors that have been proven to actually contribute to crime within societies. This is really just about police culture.
Yep, there you go. Police culture. Once again, eating policy alive. All right. Georgia beauty queen has been arrested, charged with killing a toddler. The toddler was her boyfriend, according to the report. Put it up full man. This is a hell of a story, very sad. 18-year-old Trinity Pogue, a Georgia beauty queen, is facing charges including aggravated battery, felony murder, and cruelty to children in the first degree following the death of her boyfriend's 18-month-old son. According to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Pogue is currently booked in the Sumter County Jail with no bond. Her charges come after campus police at Georgia Southwestern, this is a state university, found the toddler, Jackson Drew, or Romeo Ingles, per his birth certificate. There is some debate about the name, okay? Unresponsive inside a dorm January 14th, according to local news outlet WALB. They are located in Albany, Georgia. The outlet notes Pogue is a freshman at the school and that the child's single father, Javante Smith, who took his son to the hospital. That's the child's father, all right? The child was taken to the hospital in Americus, Georgia, where he later passed away. Initial findings indicate the cause of death may have been blunt force trauma. The Sumner County coroner told WALB. The coroner's office did not immediately respond to HuffPost's request for an update on the toddler's official cause of death. The GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, began investigating the incident after being contacted by the Georgia Southwestern State University Police Department following the toddler's death. Pogue was arrested following an investigation that included multiple interviews and an examination of the evidence, said the GBI. In 2023, Pogue earned the title of Miss Donaldsonville, a small town south of Atlanta. An Instagram post on October 30th shows her in a pageant, sash and crown. The caption on the post reads, quote, "Having a title doesn't make you higher than anyone, more prettier, or even more popular. In my case, it simply shows the younger generation what is all to achieve." This is ongoing. There is a GoFundMe created to help Smith pay for his son's funeral. And as of this morning, it exceeded the goal of $10,000. But if you would like to be a blessing to them in memory of the young Jackson Williams, we encourage you to do so, all right? Once again, this is an ongoing and developing story, but she has been charged, no bond. You would have to imagine that after investigation, examination, as well as looking at forensic evidence, they have concluded surely that she was the cause of the child's death. This is such a damn shame. All right, thoughts here.
Yeah, what a sad story. No one likes these stories. And the worst part about them is that even if justice is served the way it should be, the damage is already done, the baby's already gone. These things happen, and it's hard to say why they happen. There can be a myriad of reasons as to why this happened to this child, but it is good that we're talking about it here on the show today so that we can get maybe some support for the family.
Yeah. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that's willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT, TYT.
The place is like 95% TYT on.
Favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Cenk and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
The people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
All right, welcome back. Let me read just a couple of comments quickly. I wish a dragon would. The Sophia story is the best story I'm going to see all week. Yep, it is. And then 36 Chambers _ dragon. Look at the beautiful smile. Saying I got you, you monster. I'm smarter than you and looking good while doing it. All right. Another mother dead because of medical staff and mistakes. Put up the picture full mass. We've reported on this before. Statistical data is available that shows how medical doctors in this country are killing Black women who are pregnant. All right? A newly released information has provided more insight into the death of 30-year-old Black mother Christine Fields. Fields died November 13th, 2023, after undergoing an emergency C-section at Woodhull Medical Center in Brooklyn, New York. The mother of 3 went into medical crisis, which led staff to perform the procedure. Her fiance, Jose Perez, claimed she did not want the surgery as it was not part of her original birth plan. She had provided her plan to the attending medical professionals when she was admitted. However, the family alleges staff ignored her birth plan and the family's advocacy on her behalf. Fields also sought the assistance of her delivery specialist, who was unavailable at that time. Her baby's heart rate drops, and there's fetal distress. Ira Newman, the family's attorney, previously explained to local news, quote, "She's rushed in for a C-section, and we are investigating and have learned from the medical examiner's office that there was pooling blood." The New York Times secured a 2-page document of initial findings from New York State Department of Health's investigation. The notes were created on December 18th, just over a month after her passing, and revealed that a mistake by the medical staff played a role in what happened, citing miscommunication. It claims the surgeons failed to notify other members about Fields' complications from the procedure, which notably breaches the safety and health regulations. It mentions a uterine arterial injury, which ultimately resulted in maternal death, according to the report. They admit it. It's in writing. Put it up. Perez called Fields' condition after the surgery. That is the man whose heart was completely shattered. He observed something was visibly wrong with his fiancée in the hours following the son's birth. He brought it to the staff's attention, but alleged the staff did not notice her complications. Before I go further, there's another story that I want you to check out when you get a moment. It's online. I think it's on YouTube as well. There's a judge, former TV judge named Judge Hatchett. Her son went through something very similar. He noticed the signs. He saw it happening. He kept telling medical staff, and they kept telling him he was wrong. She was wrong, his wife, and that they were going to be okay. She died. She's dead now. And he feels like he should have done more, but he trusted experts. The Times noted that the documentation does not include her name or a thorough description of the C-section. However, a doctor who did not want to be identified confirmed with the outlet that it refers to Fields' case. Their probe is still ongoing in the labor and delivery unit. In addition, the Times reported that 2 other anonymous sources who work at the facility claim that some staff members were urged to go to training or review the policies after Fields', as they're calling it, incident. Per the document, the department informed the hospital's leadership that, quote, there is a need for immediate action for patients undergoing procedures to prevent serious adverse outcome. Fields' family announced their plans to sue the hospital for $41 million, alleging careless and negligent treatment, WABC reported. When asked to issue a statement regarding her death, the NYC Health and Hospital System said they've improved their protocols and hired 2 new individuals for anesthesiology departments across our health system. We're using innovative interventions that we believe will address the disparities in race-based health care gaps that historically and disproportionately affect the diverse population of patients we proudly serve. The statement said, they're saying, yep, we kill people based on race. So we have new policies not to kill people based on their race. That's really what the statement says. You read between the lines. Put her up full mask. They took this mother away from those children, and that man who loves that woman feels death as a grand reminder Black mothers are more likely than any other racial group to die from pregnancy-related factors under the care of a medical doctor. The CDC estimates in 2021 the maternal mortality rate among Black women was nearly 70 deaths for every 100,000 live births. That is damn near 3 times higher than the rate for white women, regardless of income or education. Right? Here we are. Data right in front of us, live examples. But still, there's no racism in America. There's no bias, implicit racism. What is that? So sad for this family to have to experience this. Racism kills, ladies and gentlemen. Racism kills people. That's why it's so important. Thoughts?
Yeah, the maternal mortality rates in this country are absolutely dismal and unacceptable. And it's scary, especially being a woman of color. And I live in Texas, and we have one of the worst maternal mortality rates in the country, even with a world-renowned medical center here in Houston. You know, we portray ourselves as the best country in the world, but we can't even protect our women, our mothers specifically. And yes, accidents can and do happen. Yes, there are a million things that can go wrong during a pregnancy or during a birth, but there is a very troubling trend in this country of stories like this one popping up more and more often. There are also stories that I'm seeing of patients, specifically female patients, who are receiving medical procedures that they did not consent to receiving. And I'm not a doctor, and I would never presume to know the stress or the weight of that job. But I do know that cases like this one, the maternal mortality rate in this country, these are not sustainable. People, perhaps it's a resource issue, perhaps it's a workforce issue, maybe it's bureaucracy, or maybe it is just racism, whether that's overt or covert. Whatever it is, I would love to see more attention and more resources directed towards protecting our mothers, especially our mothers of color. And I realize that that's much easier said than done, but sometimes things are difficult, but it doesn't mean that they're not important.
Very well said. This is always a pleasure to have you on the program. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your great work.
Yeah, you can find me on the Rebel HQ YouTube channel. I do videos 4 times a week there. And you can also follow my podcast. It's called Modern Context, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you as always. All right. The Bullpen is next. Stick and stay.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You know, you just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT, TYT.
The place is like 95% TYT on.
channel, we're getting that message out.
Tank and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
All the people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning. They seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
All right, let's get it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. All right. Yep, he's back in the bullpen today. We have Mr. David Grasso, independent journalist. Also, he holds a Master of Public Policy from Harvard Kennedy School. Congratulations on all of that. All right.
Not as prestigious as it used to be, but I'm still a big fan of my degree.
That's good stuff, man. You should, brother. You earned it. All right. So we actually want to make the main thing in politics be the main thing in politics, which is actually policy. You know, personality has become number one in kind of the agenda for now. But the reality is policy still is the way you are supposed to play politics. I want to talk specifically about Black folk, brown folk policy. How has Republican policy impacted Black Americans, Latino Americans? How has progressive policies impacted the same? I have my opinion, you got yours. So what say you?
So let's start with what attracts Latinos and African-American communities to the conservative movement. I think you have to talk a lot about entrepreneurship. We think in our communities, we're more likely to be entrepreneurs. We're more likely to own small businesses. And I think people of all partisan persuasions understand that there's a huge problem in the way that we regulate massive businesses and small businesses the same way. So let's talk about that first. A lot of people who are entrepreneurs, who understand that it's very difficult to run a small business, are often attracted to conservative ideas.
Yeah, but what's the policy? Because when you look at the actual numbers, the fastest growing demographic of new business owners is actually African-American females.
Yes.
And also in education as well, right? Education obtainment. So when you look at the numbers, what policy has a Republican presented and approved that made this entrepreneurship dynamic more attainable? And what policies have Democrats presented and approved that made it more obtainable for them? Because the Republicans are literally stripping those programs through SBA and others, or attempting to, and eliminating those programs completely in state government that would actually attribute monetary opportunity allocation to good ideas from those in the communities you just named. So how are Republicans winning that battle when politically they're not, based on the agreeance of voters they're not, and also based on the allocation of how money should be specialized in these arenas they're not?
So specifically, let's give liberals a point, right? Student loan forgiveness for people who serve in public service is enormously valuable. Now, when we're talking about, entrepreneurship at the state level, this is where it gets dicey because there's 50 states. And it really doesn't have a lot to do with what party is running that specific state. It has a lot to do with policies on professional licenses. And in a lot of states, they're way overregulated. And this includes both red and blue states, to be fair. And for someone who has a hair salon or a flower shop or a restaurant, these policies are all over the place. It really depends on independent leadership in the legislatures and in the governor's office. And I can give examples of red states going the wrong way and the right way, and blue states the same way.
Let me give you some specifics, because when people question why are Black people supporting Democrats, and a lot of times you will hear this from the right, and there was, oh, you're on the Democratic plantation and things like that. But when you look at the numbers, and I'm not saying Democrats are great. I put my foot up there for Democrats all the time. The point is, what policy presents the better opportunity for you to get from point A to B? Most businesses in America actually do not start with a loan. They start with what we call disposable income. That's how most businesses in America start. So how do you increase disposable income? If we already know factually that most businesses start based on the disposable income that you have, which policy brings you closer to disposable income? So I'm going to read a couple of stats. And this is 20 years of Democratic leadership versus 20 years of Republican leadership in the presidential sense. Black families' incomes grew under Democratic leadership on an average of $900 annually, but only grew $142 under Republican same 20-year comparative cycle. Black unemployment fell by a rate net 7.9 percentage points across 26 years of Democratic leadership, but it actually went up 13.7 points during 28 years of Republican presidencies. Across the years of Democratic leadership, Black poverty has actually declined by 23.6 percentage points, but it grew 3 points under Republican leadership in the White House. And specifically about Trump, because this gets lost in the narrative. Under Trump, here are the facts. Black-white wage gap increased under Donald Trump since Trump took office. The actual gap between Black Americans and white Americans increased to 28%. The number was at its lowest under President Barack Obama at about 19%. Black-white wealth gap is one. Home ownership is another. Why? Because for most Americans, the number one investment, the largest investment you will make is the investment of a home. Black home ownership actually decreased under Donald Trump. It decreased under Donald Trump's presidency, and the gap between Black-white ownership, that gap increased by 32%. So you had less Black homeowners. You had less programs that allow for Black home ownership with first-time buyers. You also had a household median income of Black families go down, even though they had more technical employment, meaning contact with contract jobs, et cetera, they still made less money. And you had the lowest high school graduation rate under President Trump in modern history for Black Americans. And the list goes on and on. So from having disposable income, the progressive values seem to actually get you there. And by the way, white people make more money than the Democrats than they make under Republicans as well. So it's not just Black folk. So how are they able to make a policy argument that our policies give you more opportunity at entrepreneurship when the policies that we have before us over the last 30 years plus of Republican versus Democratic policies, this is not conjecture or future projection. This is what has happened. Those policies have aggregated to show very clearly, these numbers aren't even similar, dear brother, that Democratic or progressive policies will give you a better outcome, even if that outcome is not synonymous to what you should have, is better than what Republicans give you.
So here's the problem. The past 3 Republican administrations, right, when they ended, what did they have in common? When Trump presidencies was over, when Bush the first, if we go back to 1992, and George Bush in 2008, all 3 of those ended in a crisis, in a recession. So you're taking a statistical snapshot during an era that things were not good. And then when you talk about policy decisions, they're often path dependent. In fact, your audience, one of their biggest critiques of the Biden administration will be that it greatly resembles the Trump administration. So it's really hard to take a statistical snapshot of policies in time. If you look at policy analysis and policy impact, really, you have to look 10 years down the line to really find true impact. You're always going to find convenient statistics to support whether a Republican or Democratic administration is better for the average consumer or average ethnic group.
But that's what I'm asking.
But it's never going to give you a real world reality, especially when inconveniently for Republicans, the past 3 Republican presidencies have ended in an economic crisis.
Well, let me ask you this. Give me one. Take the entire gamut. Give me a Republican policy that has given Black and brown people a significant win that is championed by Republicans today.
Okay, so lack of zoning. A lot of housing prices are driven by zoning. You know, the nasty
but zoning is not a partisan. When we say zoning,
conservative market-driven policy.
No, let's come back. Let's come back.
And not San Francisco. That is a conservative policy. When you're talking about
you said zoning is a conservative policy. You got to unpack that because I'm not sure if you're talking about zoning for commercial use.
No. Lack of zoning is a conservative policy. So zoning, as we know it, was
no, sir. I would not agree that lack of zoning is a conservative policy because zoning is
big
typically.
Time. I mean, if you look at the poster child for lack of zoning, it's Texas, or even where you are, Atlanta has very light touch zoning. When you go into more blue states like San Francisco, or New York, zoning is very heavy. And ultimately, when you're talking about disposable income, as you mentioned, housing is the #1 expense. So if you bring down housing expenses, you'll probably see more entrepreneurs start businesses.
All right. So let me provide some pushback to that point. So zoning, at least for the states that are around me, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, even Florida, your local city council, and some are called townships that are a little bit smaller.
Sure.
These are nonpartisan elections. None of these individuals have partisan elections. They're all general election. And even in Atlanta, none of the individuals are partisan. So you don't vote for a Democratic mayor or Democratic council person. They are all open tickets. So you can't make the significant argument of partisanship being involved in the zoning ritual. But I will say this about cause and effect, because there's one dynamic that I think is a good contrast. And my actual background before getting into broadcasting was in higher education reform.
Yes.
I have one of my doctoral degrees from Clark Atlanta University in federal higher education reform. And in that, I analyzed and researched all of the presentations of Democrats federally, all of the presentations of Republicans federally over the last 20 years. And I looked at the American College Promise Act. And that act would have revolutionized how we did education, but that didn't happen. But here's the reality. Roughly 70% of Black graduates will default on their loan within a few years after graduating. Now, this is not simply because they don't pay. It's because of the ecosystem of having to find a job,
interest rates,
et cetera. There you go. And the only party that has presented a resolution are Democrats, not to the degree that I would like them to, but they have. And the only party that's pushing back and saying, no, this is illegal, are Republicans. When the reality is this is a real thing impacting everyday people, and they don't realize that the cause and effect is this. What's the #1 deterrent to first-time home buyers? Debt. Student loan debt is the #1 deterrent
So
to
can I
first-time
take
home
a
buyers.
third way on this one, Don?
Sure,
So
yes.
I think both parties are wrong about this.
Okay.
So I think it's packaged wrong. Student loan forgiveness is saying you're giving out freebies. Maybe they should be negotiating about interest rate forgiveness. And the way we package things would probably get buy-in from constituencies who really don't believe in student debt forgiveness. You talk to any borrower paying 8 or 9% on your loan, there's no way you're ever going to get ahead. So I believe it's a PR disaster on both sides. And I don't believe either party really reflects the common person's way of looking at a policy solution for trillions of dollars of student debt, which we currently face.
Man, let me tell you something, dear brother. Ironically, you could find my doctoral dissertation online. That's one of my recommendations, is that they have decided to package it as a partisan idea rather than a collective negotiable idea. And because of that, it gets killed depending on what tank it comes from. So I appreciate your honesty on that. Always, dear brother, thank you for your insight.
Always, great to be here.
Absolutely. All right. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.